In this video, we'll look at applying the definition of segment length to points designated by combinations of variables and numbers. For example, in this case, point A, instead of being a number like -341, is a binomial, 2a plus 7. It's a combination of variables and numbers. Point Q is 13a minus 12. Again, it's a binomial, combination of variables and numbers. Let's see how we apply the definition of segment length here. So as before, we'll start with step number 1 by writing the definition of segment length. So the length of segment, in this case PQ, is equal to the absolute value of little p, that's the position of point P, minus little q, and that's the position of point Q. So that's step 1. I wrote the definition of segment length. Step 2, substitute in what you know. We don't know what the length of PQ is, so I'll just write it as PQ. It's a variable, again, even though it's got 2 letters to name it, it's just like an X or a Y. So PQ is equal to the absolute value of P. P is 2a plus 7. And we need to subtract Q, so minus. Q is 13a minus 12. I'm going to put that whole thing in parentheses. And there's a good reason for doing that. Let me write it down here first. 13a minus 12. Absolute value symbol. The reason I need to put those parentheses around there is because I'm subtracting Q. And Q is made up of these 2 terms, so I have to subtract 13a, and I have to subtract negative 12. So let's do some simplifying. Step 3. So PQ equals the absolute value. Let's gather our like terms. So I have 2a minus 13a. 2a minus 13a is negative 11a. I have 7 minus a minus 12. Let's see. So if I've got 7 minus 12, remember, subtraction is the same as adding the opposite. So instead of subtracting negative 12, I could rewrite this as 7 plus positive 12. So 11a plus 19. Step 4, take the absolute value. Now we got a problem here, however. I don't know what a is. If a is a big positive number, like 2 or more, let's say, then what's inside of here is going to be negative. And to take the absolute value is to take the opposite. If a is a relatively small number, 1 or less, then everything inside here is going to be positive, and I just keep it as it is. I don't know what a is, so I can't take off that absolute value sign. So I'm really done at that previous step. So I say PQ, which is the length of segment PQ, is simply the absolute value of negative 11a plus 19. Now I do want to give you an example of why we couldn't take those absolute value symbols off. Let's say I had taken those absolute value symbols off and I said PQ equals negative 11a plus 19. Well, if a was 1, let's say a equals 1. negative 11 times 1 is negative 11. So I'd have negative 11 plus 19. And that equals 8. That makes sense because absolute value is always positive. Well, what if A were 2? So I have negative 11A, negative 11 times 2 is negative 22 plus 19 equals negative 3. Well, that can't be because I took the absolute value, and the absolute value is always positive. So unless I know what A is, I don't know whether to keep what's in those parentheses or to take the opposite of what's inside those parentheses. So I'll simply leave them on, and we'll say we're done